Hello, I'm Bill Labaris. I'm the Content Director of the Mobile Enterprise 360 community. And I'm very happy to be joined here today by Seth Pickett, who is Director of Marketing and Product Management, Marketing and Strategic Planning at HP. Seth, thank you very much for being my guest here today.
Hey, pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Seth, there is something of an alphabet soup that's been emerging in IT these days with some new acronyms like MDM and MAM, and I think people have a general idea what they mean, but talk to three people and you get sort of three different definitions of what they think these things mean. Do a level set for us, if you would, please, to get started here on what things like MDM and MAM mean from your perspective.
Sure, we'll do, Bill. Thanks for the question. I've actually been thinking about adding more to the alphabet soup because I just don't think in this industry we have enough of those. So we'll start with that. But mobile device management. We'll start with MDM. Mobile device management is really about the management of the mobile device, right? More along the lines of inventory management, kind of the software updates and upgrades, and then some of the security features of that would be things like remote wipe, right? So it's very, very infrastructure centric. You think about the tangible device itself, and it's really sort of the management, if you will, around that. Mobile application management, on the other hand, is in more of the apps realm, and that's really about the ability to push, upgrade, update, and manage applications on the actual mobile devices themselves, right? So they're a little bit, one sits in the infrastructure realm, and then the other one sits in really more of the apps realm, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Okay, all right. And by the way, is one more security oriented than the other, perhaps?
Actually, I think we'll get to this, but it's really important to start thinking about both of these things together. Yeah. So when we talk about security, we'll talk a bit more about the cohesiveness of what's happening in the marketplace and what's happening with the actual platforms that are available today to actually manage this ongoing. Okay,
great. With the really almost astounding proliferation of mobile devices and mobile clients out there today, almost every organization has at least taken some kind of shot or at least started thinking about developing a mobile strategy. What do you see customers often getting wrong when it comes to developing these mobile management strategies these days?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as doing something wrong, but I think it's just kind of how this has all grown up. I'll even speak for us. I mean, when we did most of the things in Workplace, for example, as we delivered a messaging platform for a client, all of a sudden it was, the question came in that, well, what about mobility? And then it was like, wow, okay, so the mobility aspect of things used to be just thought of as an extension of something else that we did, and now it's really more about that's the actual destination, right? In terms of how these big trends and things have driven consumer usage, but not just in the consumer lives, but also in the enterprise. Mobility is an inherent part of really the enterprise operation moving forward, and we see that. So, but one of the things, getting back to the core part of the question, was that we see a lot of clients actually, they have really good security on their laptops, their desktops, right? Those types of things when you think about the traditional delivery, but there are holes when it comes to, okay, that piece of information can wind up on a wireless device. It's a little bit more of a free-for-all out there. They haven't really thought through the full cohesive security strategy around the inclusion of mobile devices, not just the ones that the corporation owns, but again, we'll get into one of these trends, I'm sure, where there's a lot of devices that people are using that aren't owned by the enterprise, but they're using their own device, right? And sometimes information, applications, and things of that nature actually wind up on those devices. So it's really sort of the security strategy is there, but they haven't thought about it holistically with the inclusion of really mobile devices in total, right? Not just the ones that the enterprise actually owns, but others that people bring into the enterprise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if there is a trend then where some of these mobile strategies are converging onto, say, a single platform so that users and IT have a more complete enterprise mobility solution, if that's the case, how does a trend like this change mobile opportunities that might present themselves to organizations?
Yeah, it's a super question, and what's great about this is, and remember when we opened up talking about MDM and MAM one being in the infrastructure realm and the other one being in the applications realm. Well, as these start to converge, all of a sudden we're forced to think about this more holistically. So you've got the applications and the infrastructure in play at the same time. So there's a lot that comes out of just that start. But then outside of that, you also have the other big trends as well, from a cloud perspective, from a security perspective. So if you start adding in those other influences or outside sort of pressures on how the enterprise would actually need to operate, how people want to operate within their workplace and in their integrating their personal lives together, it becomes a much richer conversation around this whole aspect of gosh, how do you handle mobility in the enterprise? Right? It's very different than what the approach was in the past. So again, it's a much richer dialogue. There is a lot more really requirement to understand the applications franchise and the infrastructure franchise of the enterprise, right? And as these things continue to apply pressure on the organization, certain decisions are going to have to be made, right? And so that's really the big opportunity, is the fact that these two worlds are coming together, but then adding in cloud delivery models with traditional, right? So you have more of that hybrid delivery model, gets pretty interesting, right? Very, very quickly, very, very compelling.
When you consider the environment, I mean the different operating environments that are out there, the different the plethora of devices and device types that are out there, and just the rate of speed, the rate of change out there. I mean, quite honestly, a few months ago people were kind of writing off RIM, and now they're bouncing back. Seemingly from what I read in space, the environment is so dynamic. How do solid strategies for MDM and MAM and the like help resolve the challenges that are brought on by this complexity and the dynamic nature of the environment?
Right. Well, a couple of things at play here. I think every enterprise out there is at a different state, a different philosophy. They have different assets in place, and they have many different user communities and user groups out there, as well as different behaviors on the job. Right. From a sales perspective, you may need some. The day in the life of a salesperson might be very different from the day in the life of somebody in HR, for example. Right. So you've got to take all that into consideration when you start thinking about your strategy. The past, again, as we've talked about, really the approach for mobility has been more of a legacy telephony approach, where if you start thinking about all the platforms like, iOS and Android and Soft, right, and you start thinking about all those different platforms that are actually out there now, BlackBerry being another one, then, if you're heavy into the actual tangible phone, the operating system and things of that nature, as they rebound, like what BlackBerry is doing in the marketplace today, that could play in and actually create an issue, a problem, or it could be good for somebody that's really heavily invested in BlackBerry. Right. But as you think about how to sort of look at mobility in the enterprise moving forward, and mobility in general, it's less about a telephony issue and more about a compute issue, right? Or opportunity. Let's use that word, because I think that's really more the case, where you actually untether yourself from the actual device, and you provide a lot more choice and flexibility around the operating systems that people choose to use, and allow them access to applications and information in a secure way on whatever device they've got, where you're managing that information and applications from a centralized point, and you're providing them access to that. They can do their enterprise-oriented work on that device, but then they can also switch over and do their personal stuff as well. So again, when you untether yourself from the actual device, it gets very interesting in terms of how you could actually take your strategy forward.
Right. And of course, that's the essence of BYOD and consumerization.
Exactly.
Sort of be as platform and OS agnostic as possible. Yep. Let's talk some specifics here, Seth, if we can. What is HP specifically doing here? What are you bringing to the table to help customers develop this unified, holistic mobile management take on things?
Sure. Well, remember, I articulated earlier that each one of our clients is in a different place. In some cases, the actual management of the device, so the MDM focus, is really still prevalent and a very important part of how we think about this whole thing. That could MDM perspective, we're bringing years of experience around mobile device management, the ability to manage the devices, manage the inventory, right, and manage the various security and remote wipe capabilities over the air. Very good at that. But you're adding more of that mobile application management piece to this. We have very robust capabilities in client virtualization services, meaning certain applications, another step in this whole continuum may be that certain applications that the enterprise has can be virtualized for various user groups. And so that might be the decision moving forward, that those apps, a certain number of apps can be virtualized to a certain number of devices. And an early strategy could be that the enterprise would actually still own the physical assets, but then moving forward start to provide more and more choice. So offering the ability for somebody to choose their own device or choose your own devices, sort of akin to BYOD, but also providing that menu of various hardware assets that somebody can actually choose to use in the enterprise. Again, making IT much more relevant to this conversation. Another big piece of the what we bring to bear here is our ability to advise. Right, we have very robust advisory services in this area, and as you start thinking about all the different factors, the various steps in maturity around mobility, the various ways that mobile can be consumed, right, whether it's via virtualization or via the cloud, for example, being two different choices, the ability to assess what you do. The ability to assess applications and if they're capable of being virtualized or not, and or if you just go straight to the cloud. So along with this ability to have a really robust assessment engagement with HP, we're also offering to the marketplace our enterprise cloud services. We have management essentials for mobility. We can help you set up your MDM strategy and policies, as well as your mobile applications management policies. So again, getting this thing going. And then as a part of this, we're offering what we're calling HP file management. So here it's really that finally the promise of a secure place where people can share documents real time from an enterprise class security point of view, right? So the ability to collaborate on a document literally in real time, regardless of the device that you're on, is again, very, very compelling. And this goes in line with a lot of the things that we're doing as a part of our infrastructure portfolio. There's a grand continuum of capabilities that we're investing in our enterprise cloud services portfolio. A lot of these different things that I'd mentioned are part of or ride on this global infrastructure engine we call enterprise cloud services virtual private cloud. There's a number of different flavors of cloud. That's a conversation for another day. But here we have the ability to offer that on the cloud, but also very robust portfolio to deliver traditional IT services. So we're bringing all this to bear, and again, our clients are in different places, and the journey for each will be different.
And of course, we have an interesting and potentially very valuable partnership with Citrix these days. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that relates to ultimately your ability to help the anytime, anywhere, any place on any device worker get what they need to get when they want it?
Absolutely. So as I articulated the breadth and depth of experience that HP has, the various technologies that HP has as well, but you couple that with the technology and the software that Citrix brings to bear, and you really have a winning solution. Because as Citrix was born, they were born to address this whole issue of anytime, anywhere access to information and applications. So that, coupled with our delivery engine and our know-how from an implementation and management perspective, it's a winning formula.
Excellent, great. Well, Seth Pickett, Director of Marketing, Product Management, Marketing, and Strategic Planning at HP. Thank you very much for joining me today. Excellent information.
I really appreciate it. Thanks again for having me.
Sure. And I'm Bill Libera from IDG saying thank you very much for joining me today as well.